lecture we will look at the shifting bottleneck heuristic to try and minimize the make span in the job shop scheduling scenario. In the previous lecture we had found a solution using the SPT rule which gave us a make span of 40. Now we will apply the shifting bottleneck heuristic to the same example to see whether we can get a better solution or to understand how the shifting bottleneck heuristic works. Now in order to understand the shifting bottleneck heuristic, let us first draw a network which represents the job shop scheduling problem. Now let us look at this network. This network captures a part of the information that is given here. Now there is a start and there is a finish. Instead of looking at the job shop scheduling problem through a Gantt chart, which is what we did in the previous lecture, let us try and look at it through this network. So there are 3 jobs to be done and these 3 jobs represent these 3 paths in this network. So this would represent that job 1 first visits machine 1. If we see the route of job 1, it is machine 1, machine 3 and machine 2. So job 1 on machine 1 followed by machine 3 followed by machine 2. So if we trace the path of job 1, then the arrows will have to be like this. Similarly, job 2 first goes to machine 2, machine 1 and machine 3. So job 2 first goes to machine 2, machine 1 and machine 3, and therefore the directions for job 2, flow of job 2 will be like this, and similarly for job 3 it will be like this. We also have a certain processing time associated with each node, and each node represents an operation which is the visit of a job on a machine. So if a node has I comma j, then j is the job and I is the machine. So 1 has value 7, this has 8, this has 10, this 6, 4 and 12, and this is 8, 8 and 7. So left to itself, each job will go through these machines, the order of visit of these machines are captured. But then we also have a condition that a machine can process only one job at a time. So if we take a particular machine, now the machine figures here, machine 1 figures here as well as machine 1 figures here. So machine 1 would now take the jobs according to a particular sequence, and depending on that the time taken will change. So if we take machine 1 and show this, we could have, for example, between jobs 1 and 2 we could have something like this, where at the moment we do not know whether job 1 is going to go first on machine 1 or job 2 is going to go first on machine 1. So if job 1 goes first and then job 2 goes on machine 1, then something like job 1 will go first, then job 2 will go on machine 1 and the flow will continue. If job 2 is going first and job 1 is coming later, it is like saying job 2 will do it first, then the arrow will move towards job 1 and then it will proceed. So at the moment we do not know that if we consider these 2 jobs on this particular machine, we do not know the order in which they are going to be processed by the machine, and depending on the order we know that one of these two will be active while the other will not be active. Similarly, we have to consider for machine 1 jobs 2 and 3, and also for machine 1 jobs 1 and 3. So, there are actually for every pair of jobs there are 2 arcs, one of them will finally be active depending on the solution. Similarly, we have to do for machine 2. So, machine 2 is here, machine 2 is here, and machine 2 is here. So, we would have something like this, and something like this, depending on the order in which the machine is going to process the jobs. As I mentioned, for every pair in the final solution, only one of the arcs will be active. Now, similarly for machine 3, there are machine 3 figures in 3 different places here. So, we will have one set like this, we will have one set like this, and we will have the third set like this. So, this completes the network where these type of arcs will not change, the directions will not change, and in all the places where we have 2 arcs, depending on the solution, only one of them will be active in the final solution. Now, if we draw such a network, and our decision now is to find out, if we take machine 1, out of these 3 sets of arcs, 6 arcs that we have written, which of them are going to be active and which of them are not going to be active. To put it differently, when we decide which of them are going to be active and which of them are not going to be active, we automatically are deciding the order or sequence in which this particular machine is going to take up the jobs. So, if we are able to get the set of active arcs out of these bunched arcs in an intelligent manner, such that the longest path is reduced, then the make span is automatically reduced. The longest path on this arc indicates the make span of a given feasible schedule. Let us explain that aspect by first looking at the SPT solution, showing how we are able to capture that 40 on this network, and then showing how the longest path represents the make span of a given schedule. So, we have already seen this Gantt chart or bar chart in a previous lecture, where the make span is 40. More importantly, for the SPT schedule, M1 is taking the jobs in the sequence J1, J2 and J3. So, let us try and match that here, where M1 is taking them in the order J1, J2 and J3. So, M1 is first taking it in this order. So, this is done first, then this is done, then this is done. So, M1 is taking first J1, then J2, then J3. So, let me just show this with a different color and put a dash here to indicate that out of these 2 arcs that are connecting these 2 nodes, this arc, this particular arc with an arrow mark here indicates that J1 is done first and then J2 is done on M1. Similarly, since 3 is done after 2, between these 2 arcs, now this arc will be active, the arrow mark here will be active, which is now shown by this dotted arc. So, for the SPT sequence on M1, the 2 dotted arcs are now replacing this pair and this pair. As far as this pair is concerned, both of them are inactive, because we will not put 1 to 3. The sequence in which that happens is J1 and then J2 and then J3. So, automatically when we put one arc here and another arc here, it takes care of the fact that 3 is done after 1 and the root moves like this. So, both these will not be used. So, only 2 out of the 6 will become active according to a feasible schedule. Now, let us look at M2 on the SPT chart and realize that the order is J2, J1 and then J3. So, on M2 first it is doing J2, then it is doing J1 and then it is doing J3. So, let us replace this with this arc here and then this arc which is this. Similarly, on M3 it is again J1, J2 and J3. So, on M3 it is first J1, on M3 it is first J1, then it is J2 and then it is J3. So, the order will be and then J3. So, now this network has become slightly clumsy because I have overwritten the colored arrows, but then we have to find out the longest path on this network considering only the colored arrows as well as these kind of arrows. So, to do that quickly, let us draw this network again with the relevant arcs and then try to find out the longest path. So, we have S 1 1, 3 1, 2 1, F 2 2, 1 2, 3 2, 1 3, 2 3, 3 3 and F. Plus of course 1 1 to 1 2 and then 1 3, then 3 1 2 3. So, 3 1 3 2 3 3, and as far as 2 is concerned 2 1 2 3, 2 2 2 1 and 2 3. So, 2 2 2 1 2 3. So, this is the arc that we have. Now, we have to find out the longest path on this. We also have to write down the process times 7, 8, 10, 6, 4, 12, 8, 8 and 7. So, we will now start with from here to here. So, this node the value is 7. Now, this node the value is 6. Now, the longest path to reach this node is 7 plus 4 and then you come down here. So, the value is 11. And if we see very carefully, these are exactly the values of 7 and 11 which represent the start times. So, 0 is here. So, 0 is here. So, you realize 0, 7 and 11 plus another 8 of course will happen, which is 19. Then we have to move to this node. This is 15, 7 plus 8 15, which also we can see in that chart. Now, we come here. So, this is So, this is 11, sorry, 7 plus 4, 11. Now, we have to write it in such a manner that we take it after we include this. So, this will become 7 plus 4, 11, 11 plus this 8 will become 19. So, now we have come up to this. Then in order to look at this, this will be 15 plus 10, 25, this will be 6 plus 10, 16. So, we will look at this at 25. Now we have evaluated this node, now we have to evaluate this node. So this is 15 plus 12, 27, 15 plus 12, 27. So this is 15 plus 12, 27. Now this will be 25 plus 8, 33, and this will become 33 plus 7, 40, and this is 0, so this will become 40. So now we realize that the longest path on this network has a length equal to 40, which happens to be the make span of the sequence. So we have essentially mapped the SPT solution on to this arc to try and get the make span corresponding to the SPT solution. But that is not what we intend to do. What we have tried to show is, given a Gantt chart from which the order of visit of the jobs can be ascertained, we have now mapped the Gantt chart onto this and chosen the relevant arcs corresponding to a given solution, and we have evaluated the make span to show that both of these are the same. But that is not what we intend to do. What we intend to do is to try and find out what is the best way that we choose the 2 out of these 6. SPT made us choose this and this. Now is there another way by which we can choose another set of 2 arcs out of this? Similarly, another set of 2 arcs on the yellow and another 2 arcs on the other, which is machine 2, so that at the end of it the longest path is less than 40. So if we are able to get the longest path as less than 40, then we have achieved a solution that has lesser make span than the solution that has been shown here. The other learning also is that the important thing though is the computation of the make span and try to minimize the make span, but the decision that has to be taken, what SPT rule did is to try and find out a certain order in which the jobs are going to be processed on the machines. For every such given order there will be a make span. So what we try to do is we try to get that order by looking at these arcs and trying to find out what is the best arc that we use. Each arc that we use represents an order in which the jobs are going to be processed on the machines. So let us now try and see, now having understood this part, let us now try and see, is there a best way or what is the way that we are going to adopt to choose the best 2 out of the 3. So what I will do now is I will remove these because these belong to SPT. So now we have to find out, if we take machine 1, out of these 6 arcs, which 2 we are going to choose. Similarly for machine 2 and similarly for machine 3, and once we have chosen, the longest path will automatically give us a make span. Now in order to understand what is the best way to choose these arcs, we try and look at another sub problem which I will explain now, and then use results from that sub problem to determine what is the correct set of arcs that we need to choose. So let us go to the other sub problem, and this sub problem is called 1 RJ Lmax problem. It means 1 stands for a single machine, RJ stands for release times of jobs, and Lmax stands for maximum tardiness. So the sub problem that we will look at is a single machine problem with release times. It means all times are not available at time equal, all jobs are not available at time equal to 0, but the times in which the jobs are available is known. So, R j is the time at which job j is available, and L max is to minimize the maximum tardiness on this. So, let us take an example, try to understand the one R j L max problem, how do we solve that, and then see how we use results from one R j L max and superimpose it on this network, so that we are able to get the correct set of arcs that would try and give lesser make span. So, let us take this example for one R j L max, and let us look at So, let us look at a problem like this, where there are 4 jobs on a single machine. The processing times are 4, 2, 6 and 5. The release times are 0, 1, 3 and 5, and the due dates are 8, 12, 11 and 10. So, if we consider a sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, then the completion times are 4. The job can enter at time 0, so it can come out at 4, by which time job 2 is available. So, 4 plus 2 6, job 3 is available once again at 3, so 6 plus 6 12, and job 4 is available from 5, so 12 plus 5 17. These are the completion times, 4 plus 2 6 plus 6 12 plus 5 17. We have not encountered a situation where we have to, the machine has to wait for the job arrival, that has not happened in this particular sequence. But if we consider a sequence, 2, 4, 1, 3, job 2 starts at 1, so finishes at 3, because it arrives at 1, takes 2 more units, finishes at 3. 4 arrives at 5, takes 5 more units, finishes at 10. 1 is available at 0, so 10 plus 4 14. 3 is available at 3, 14 plus 6 20. So, these will be the completion times. Now, the due dates will be 12 here, for 4 it is 10, for 1 it is 8, for 3 it is 11. So, these are completion times, these are due dates. So, this job is early, this job is neither early nor tardy, this job is tardy with tardiness equal to 6, this job is tardy with tardiness equal to 9. So, maximum tardiness is L max, so L max is equal to 9. There are 4 jobs. In the worst case, you can have 4 factorial sequences. So, L max associated with the sequence 2, 4, 1, 3 is 9. What is the sequence that minimizes L max is the problem. So, now let us look at this problem and then go back and see what we do. So, let us apply a branch and bound algorithm to do that. So, let us start here with a starting tree, and then let us say that job 1 is the first job, job 2 is the first job, job 3 as first job and job 4 as first job. Now, when we take job 1 as first job, we want to find out a lower bound on L max. So, this can be written as 1 dash 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 or 1 star star star, where 3 other jobs will have to be now put in a certain sequence. So, we now start with job 1 as the first job. So, job 1 is ready at time equal to 4. So, job 1 completion time is 4, due date is 8. Now, let us try to arrange the rest of the jobs using an earliest due date sequence. So, if we look at the rest of the jobs using an earliest due date sequence, then the tentative sequence will be 4, then 3 and then 2. That is a tentative sequence if we use earliest due date for the remaining jobs. Now, the tentative completion times will be, machine is available at 4, but this is going to be there, it is going to come only at 5. So, if we want to find out the completion time, then the completion time will become 5 plus 5, 10. But we are interested in finding a lower bound to L max. Therefore, we will use what is called a preemptive EDD rule. We will use what is called a preemptive EDD rule. Now, in the actual sequence, if we want to find the actual sequence for 4, it will start at 5 and finish at 10, and the machine is idle for that one time unit because it is over at 4, but job 4 is available only at 5. Now, that additional one, it can have an impact in increasing the maximum tardiness, but in a preemptive EDD rule what we assume is that we allow job preemption. So, we now see that if there is going to be a delay because of a mismatch between this completion time and this arrival time, we look at the next available job or tentative job in the sequence, which is 3. Now, 3 is available at 3. So, it is like saying I will do 1 minute of processing of job 3, take it out at time equal to 4, then I will enter this one, and so this one will now start at 5, no, this one will start at 5 and finish at 10. So, completion time here will be 10. Now, for 3 already I have done one unit of processing time. So, 3 will now go back and complete the remaining 5 units of processing time, finish at 15, by which time job 2 is available, and then this will be 17. If on the other hand I had not used a preemptive EDD rule, then this would still have been 10, but this would have been 16 and this would have been 18. So, preemptive EDD rule allows me to try to minimize my completion time only for the purpose of the lower bound computation. When I am actually evaluating L max for a given sequence, then I will not use a preemptive rule, because one of my assumptions is that job preemption is not allowed. Only for the purpose of computing a lower bound, I can use a preemptive EDD rule and allow preemption, so that the lower estimate of L max is computed. A lower bound is a lower estimate of L max. So, lower estimate of L max is computed. Now, due dates are 8, 10, 11 and 12. So, this has maximum tardiness. So, lower bound on L max is equal to 5. Lower bound on L max is equal to 5. Now, let me explain the computation of the other one. Now, we start with 2, job 2 as first, Now job 2 as first, here we have to fix, you cannot, for the fixed jobs you cannot apply the preemptive VDD, you can apply the preemptive VDD only for the jobs that are not fixed in the partial sequence. So 2 is fixed in the partial sequence, so 2 starts at time equal to 1 and finishes at time equal to 3. The next one will be 1, the next 3 jobs will be 1, 3, 1, 4 and 3 will be the next 3 jobs, which are not shown in white. At time equal to 3 job 1 is available, so this will be finished at 7. At 7 job 4 is available, so this will be at 12, and at 12 job 3 is available, so this will be at 18. Now the due dates are 12, due dates are 12 for this, 8, 10 and 11. So this is going to contribute to L max. So L max is equal to 7, so lower bound is equal to 7. Now here we have to look at, can job 3 be the first job in the sequence? Now if we see this problem very carefully, if job 3 is the first job in the sequence, then definitely job 3 can start at 3, finish at 3 plus 6 equal to 9, and for 3 minutes the machine has to be idle. But then in those 3 minutes idle, if I could easily have put job 2 in and taken it out. So typically if there is a job here as the first job 3 and there is some other job which can be completed before this job can be started as the first job, then the L max associated with this will always be higher than the L max associated with this, because this can be done ahead. If you see carefully, if I have to do job 3 first, I have to wait for time equal to 3. So 3 minutes the machine is idle, and then after that I have to do 2. But common sense tells me that in those 3 minutes I can finish 2, because 2 starts at 1 and finishes at 3. So if there is a job like J3 whose start is going to be delayed, and in that delay if I can finish some other job completely, then the lower bound here will always be more than the lower bound here. So I do not calculate this at the moment, I simply keep this vacant because this is enough for me. So I do not do this. Similarly for 4, because for 4 I have to wait for 5 more minutes, in which time I could have finished this as well as I could have finished this. So I will not do for 4. So now I branch again on, here I branch with 1 2, 1 3, and I can actually branch on 1 4. So I could branch on 1 4 also. So let me just keep 1 4 also here. Now we can continue this idea of the preemptive VDD. Let me just explain the preemptive IDD for 1 2. So I have 1 and 2 which are fixed. So completion time is I start at 0, I finish at 4, by which time this is available. So 4 plus 2 6. Now based on a preemptive VDD I will do 4 and 3, because the remaining due dates are 11 and 10. So I will do 4 and 3. Now at time equal to 6 this is available, so this will become 11 and then this will become 17. So the due dates are for 1 and 2, 8, 12, 10, 8, 12, 10 and 11, 8, 12, 10 and 11. So lower bound becomes 6, lower bound becomes 6. Now if I do 1 and 3, which is this node, So, at time equal to 4 this is available. So, 4 plus 6 10. Now, these are the two remaining things. So, I have 4 and 2. So, at 10 job 4 is available. So, this will become 10 plus 5 15. At 15 job 2 is available. So, this will become 17. Now, the due dates are 8, 11, 10 and 12. So, L max remains at 5, lower bound remains at 5. Now, there is actually a way by which we need not do 1 4, but let us try and do 1 4 and understand, maybe we need not do it. So, we look at 1 4 here. Now, when we do 1 4, this is at time equal to 4. So, this has to wait for another 1 minute. So, takes it at 5 and finishes at 10. Then by EDD rule I have 3 and 2. So, at 10 this is available. So, 16 and 18. Now, the due dates are 8, 10, 11 and 12, 11 for 3, 12 for 2, L max is here. So, L max is 6. So, lower bound is equal to 6. It is actually possible to show that we need not calculate this, because we have a 5 and this is going to result in at least one more, but in any case we have calculated this. So, we keep this lower bound equal to 6. Now, we can proceed from here and create two branches. So, I have 1 3, I have 1 3 2 4 and 1 3 4 2. These are the two sequences that I can think of, because there are only 2 more jobs remaining. So, these are feasible sequences. So, in general one would say, even here we need not have evaluated this lower bound. We could have straight away said at 1 3 there are only 2 more jobs remaining, which can be fixed in 2 ways. So, we could create 2 more sequences. Now, remember these are full sequences. So, we will not use the preemptive EDD rule. We will simply evaluate the L max for these 2 sequences, assuming that job preemption is not allowed. So, let us evaluate L max for these 2 sequences. So, the first sequence is 1 3 2 4. So, 1 completion time is 4, 3 is available, 4 plus 6 10, at 10 2 is available, 10 plus 2 12, and at 12 4 is available, 12 plus 5 17. Now, the due dates are 8, for 3 it is 11, for 2 it is 12, for 4 it is 10. So, L max is equal to 7 for this sequence. L max is 7 for this sequence. Now, let us look at the other one, 1 3 4 2. So, at time equal to 10, 4 is available, 15. At time equal to 15, 2 is available, 15 plus 2 17, and the due dates are 10 and 12. So, L max is 5, L max is 5, or L is 5, L is 5. So, L max is 5. So, we have L max equal to 5, and this is optimal or optimum, because with this 5 I can, this is fathomed by feasibility, we can't proceed, we have a feasible solution. This is fathomed by bound, we have already seen this idea in the Branson bound for flow sharp sequencing. So, here the lower bound is higher than the current best upper bound. So, we need not proceed, we need not proceed, we need not proceed, and in any case these two we will not do. Therefore, we can go back and say that 1342 with L max equal to 5 is indeed optimal. So, this is a branch and bound algorithm to solve the 1RJ L max problem optimally. But then 1RJ L max problem is a hard problem, it is a difficult problem, it is a difficult problem, and may in the worst case involve computation of all the n factorial possible sequences. Now, we took an example with 4 jobs. So, with these 4 jobs, we may encounter a situation, not in this case, but if there are n jobs, these 4 jobs could give us 4 factorial possible sequences. But then for another problem with n jobs, we may encounter a situation where we would be evaluating all the n factorial possible sequences. So, 1RJ L max with a branch and bound can take us through an exponential number of computations, and it is a hard problem. But then using the preventive EDD based lower bound, which we demonstrated here, and also applying certain dominance conditions which we explained through this example, the dominance condition ensured that we need not evaluate this or we need not evaluate this, simply because by the time this job is ready as the first job, some other job can be completed entirely. Based on such a dominant rule, the branch and bound algorithm is found to perform very efficiently even for a reasonable job size. For example, with job sizes like 30 or 40 or 50, one can write a very efficient code which will solve this problem within a reasonable amount of computing time when we do experiments or when we do an empirical study. Though in the worst case 1RJ L max is hard. So, we still use this branch and bound algorithm to solve 1RJ L max and try to get the optimum solution which shows which minimizes the maximum tardiness on a single machine with release times. Now, we have seen the 1RJ L max problem, and now we have to go back and use this 1RJ L max on the job shop scheduling problem, so that we try and get a good schedule at the end of the application of the shifting bottleneck heuristic. We will do that right now. So, let us come back to this network, and then we understand that in this network all these arcs are not going to change, but wherever we had these pairs, for example 1 1, 1 2 and 1 3, we said that out of these 6 arcs that are shown, 2 of them will be in the solution, and which 2 will have to be decided. Now, let us look at this problem per se, and let us look at the load for each of these jobs, which means if I start looking at this path to completion, temporarily ignoring these kind of arcs, if we start looking at only these paths, now this path is 7 plus 8, 15 plus 10, 25, which represents the total processing time for job 1, which is a simple addition of these 3. So, job 1 requires 25 time units, job 2 requires 22 time units, job 3 requires 23 time units. So, automatically the lower bound on the make span is the maximum of the job processing times. So, 25 is a lower bound to the make span. Let us also try and look at machine times on the 3 machines that are required. So, M1 requires 7 plus 4, 11 plus 8, 19, M2 requires 10 plus 6, 16 plus 8, 24, and M3 requires 8 plus 12 20 plus 7 27. So, M3 with a load of 27 represents a slightly tighter lower bound on the make span. Now, we can say that since M3 alone requires 27, obviously the make span has to be greater than or equal to 27. So, we start with a lower bound on the make span as 27. So, lower bound on the make span as 27, which is for M3, and then we identify M3 as the first bottleneck machine because it has the highest load amongst the 3 machines. Now, we apply the 1RJ Lmax algorithm on machine M3 and try to look at the 4 jobs with machine M3 as the bottleneck machine. So, let us now write the 1RJ Lmax data for machine M3 with J1, J2, J3 and J4, J1, J2, J3, J3 because we have only 3 jobs. So, we have to write Pj processing time on machine 3, Rj release time or time at which the job is available, and Dj which is the due date. Now, writing the processing times is easy. We can see from here on M3 J1 requires 8, on M3 J2 requires 12 and on M3 J3 requires 7. Now, let us go back and find out the Rj, which is the release time of the job or the earliest one can expect the job to be made available for M3. So, if we look at J1 earliest it can be made available for M3 is 7 because it has to finish on M1 and only then it has to come on M3. So, earliest release time for J1 on M3 is 7. Earliest release time for J2 on M3 is 10, 6 plus 4, and earliest on J3 is again 8 plus 8, which is 16. Now, let us find out the due dates. If we assume that the make span is 27, which is the lower bound on it, now M3 is the last machine for job J2. So, the due date for job J2 will be 27, which is the lower bound on the make span. Similarly, due date for this will also be 27. But now on M1, M3 is not the last machine. So, if the make span has to be 27, then the due date for M3 has to be 17 because it requires another 10 units of time at least. So, the maximum you can stretch the due date will be 17 for J1. So, now our data is complete when we have to do the 1RJ Lmax on this. So, let us show the computation of 1RJ Lmax considering these 3 jobs on M3. So, we again start the branch and bound tree by saying job 1 is the first one, job 2 is the first one and job 3 is the first job. So, let us try and find out the Lmax for this. So, this will be 1 XX, but based on due dates it can be 1 2 3 or it can be 1 3 2. So, let us take the case 1 2 3. Now, completion times. Now, this is available only at time equal to 7. So, 7 plus 8 15. Now, at 15 J2 is available, 15 plus 12 27, and at 27 J3 is available, 27 plus 7 34. Now, due dates 17 here, for 2 also 27, for 3 also 27, there is only one L, so L max is 7. So, lower bound is 7. So, for this lower bound is 7. In fact, if we had done 1, 3 and 2, you actually realize that this 15, but at 15 this is not available. So, L max would go up only. So, this is better than the other one. Since we are using a lower bound, let us look at 7 as the lower bound. Now, we look at 2 as the first job. 2 as the first job. So, 2 Rj is 10, completion time is 22. Then based on due dates, it is 1 and 3. So, at 22 it is available, 22 plus 8, 30, 30 plus 7, 37. Now, due dates are 27, 17 and 27. So, this is 10, this is 13. So, lower bound is 13. Now, let us look at 3. One and 2 based on due dates 1 and 2. Now, completion time, this is available at 16, so 23. So, at 23 this is available, 23 plus 8, 31 plus 12, 43. Due dates are 27, 17, 27. So, this is 16. So, L max is 16. So, lower bound is 16. So, we have to proceed from here. So, 2 as the first, 3 as the first. So, it gives us a sequence 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 2 as the 2 possible sequences. So, we will quickly evaluate the L max for each of these. So, for 1, 2 and 3 completion times are 7 plus 8, 15. At 15 this is available, 15 plus 12, 27, 34. Due dates are 17, 27, 27. So, L max is equal to 7. Now, for 1, 3 and 2, so 1 is available at 7, 7 plus 8, 15. This is available at 16, so 16 plus 7, 23, and then at 23 this is available, 23 plus 12, 35. Due dates are 17, 27, 27. So, L max is equal to 8. So, with L max equal to 7, actually we could have fathomed it, because with L max equal to 7 we can fathom this, we can fathom this, and since it is a branch and bound algorithm, the value that you can get here can only be greater than or equal to 7, and since we have a solution with 7, we need not have evaluated this also. But then we know that L max equal to 7 is optimal for this. So, now we could go and say that if we look at M3 based on a 1 Rj L max, we realize that J1, J2, J3 is the optimum sequence using the branch and bound algorithm, and therefore, now we can go back to M3, machine 3 is here, machine 3 is here and machine 3 is here. Now, we say that we are going to do J1, J2 and J3. Therefore, we replace these 2 sets of arcs by one arc, which is this J1 to J2. We replace these 2 arcs with one arc here, and then we leave out these 2 arcs because they are not used at all, they are not used at all, they are not used at all. So, we have this. So, now we have identified for M3 what is the correct set of arcs. If we now go and find out the longest path on this network, the longest path on this network would be 27 plus 7, which is 34, because the 7 will be added to the longest path on this network. Now we have two more machines, machine 1 and machine 2. Machine 1 with a load of 7 plus 4, 11 plus 8, 19, and machine 2 with a load of 6 plus 10, 16 plus 8, 24. Now machine 2 becomes the next bottleneck with 24, and then we solve a 1 Rj L max on machine 2 as we did here, and then we try to with make span updated to 34, because the longest path is 34. When we did for M3 we got for 27. Now we have updated the make span to 34. So we solve a 1 Rj L max on M2 with make span equal to 34, and then we suitably define the Rj's and the Dj's for M2 and solve it. Then the make span can increase, may increase. If so, keep that and then solve it again for M1 to get the best route for M1. So in this way we will get the best route of jobs for M2 as well as the best route of jobs for M1, which means we would have chosen the best out of this set as well as the best out of the other set. And once we complete for all the machines, we can now find out the longest path, which will be a feasible solution, which will give us the make span. Now the computations on machines M2 and M1 and the application of this branch and bound idea on them to further continue on this problem, we will see in the next lecture.